Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Keisha Dunlap, Deputy Commissioner at Conference USA. I believe in servant leadership. As a conference office administrator, it's my job to serve our 9-member institutions and be a resource for our coaches, staffs, and student athletes. I was a 2010 graduate of the NCAA Leadership Institute. It was an amazing experience early in my career. It helped develop my core values that have carried me through my professional journey. I cherish those relationships I've built with my classmates, and they, to this day, are some of the closest friends that I have. Enjoy the episode.
Greetings, this is Tai Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. We are joined by Misty Brown. Misty is the Assistant Commissioner for Student Athlete Engagement and Competition at the Southeastern Conference. Greetings, Misty. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tai. Thanks for having me.
So, I have you on here looking at your background, almost 8 years there at SEC. Spent time at Georgia State, UCF. You were out of athletics for a few years, started your career at the Orange Bowl. So you've done events, from what I understand.
Yes.
Fundraise, student athlete development.
Yep.
And now you're working with sports, I guess, competitions there.
On the competition side with championships, coaches, and event planning, because I am planning championships.
Yeah. So what's interesting is the trend. I guess events is kind of the running theme there. But when you worked in development, like, were you asking questions? Were you asking for $40 million to build this building, or were you like putting together events? Tell us about that aspect of your career.
So I'd say a lot of my my development experience and fundraising started off on the event planning side.
Okay.
So planning donor events, and it eventually evolved into making donor ask and meeting with donors. And I think that's where I discovered in myself that I enjoy people. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy building relationships. Initially, when I was approached about the opportunity work in fundraising and development, I was terrified because I was like, I have to ask people for money, but I didn't realize just how easy it would be when you built relationships with people. And I'll tell you, many of the donors that I was able to meet while working at UCF and Georgia State, I'm still friends with to this day.
Really?
And when they're in Birmingham, they reach out and we go to lunch or have coffee. So I've been able to maintain relationships with people, and I'm not even asking them for money anymore.
Yeah. How do you do that? One thing we've always told when I was a young person, and I've even told young people myself, is make sure you develop relationships. I've tried to actually tell them how to do it, but tell us about how you've done it in your career.
I think it's just being genuine with people, showing that you care about people. And it doesn't have to be people you get to talk to every day, but sometimes, relationships can go beyond just the professional or the business side of things. And when you get to know about people's families, a little bit about their background, you tend to develop a more genuine relationship with people, and they learn about you. And, I think with social media, what's helped too is remaining connected with those people. And so when you do see them and they're asking you about your family, and you could do the same with them or asking them about their latest trips and their travels. But I think more than anything, Tai, it's just being genuine with people. And even in the role that I'm in now with the SEC and the student athletes I work with, just being genuine, because, they know firsthand when someone is real, or if they're just, playing games with them.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Yep.
One thing you mentioned is communication, right? Touch points. I think it's kind of the aspect, like make sure you're connecting with people. You get to a point where you don't have to connect as often because you really value each other, but touch points are important when you talk about developing those relationships.
Yep.
It's interesting. Your experience is well-rounded. So when we talk about purpose, right? My purpose in life is to be a resource to my family, close friends, and community, right? So everything I do is to execute that purpose, whatever goals I set, whatever it is. So I wonder about you when you talk about working in college athletics or even in life. event planning, developing relationships. There was a student-athlete engagement aspect of it, just being around sport. Tell me about purpose when you talk about how you're existing in the space that is Misty Brown.
Yeah. So, in the role that I'm in now, the student-athlete engagement part of that role, I get to work with student-athletes in our league, empower them, provide opportunities for leadership development, career preparation, make sure they're aware of the rules that affect their sport. And I think through doing that, I discovered in myself what my purpose is. And I think that is to serve young people. That became very evident early on when I realized that I 100% love the work that I do.
Okay.
And that out of all the things that I've done professionally, to wake up eager to go into the office and figure out a way of having an impact on a young person's life has been huge for me. And so we talk about, you find something you love and you never work a day in your life. And that's what I've discovered in the work that I do in student-athlete engagement. It also, I think, too, not at every conference level, you'll find student-athletes having a relationship with someone in the conference. And I've been able to build it as such, just coming here today at Women Leaders Convention and being able to see some of our former student-athletes, bring 14 of them with me again this year, and just spending time with them outside of this and setting time aside. I started setting, since my schedule has gotten really busy with adding the competition piece to my work responsibilities, I've begun to set aside Fridays. So Fridays are my days to where I tell student athletes, hey, this is a day that we can talk about anything you want to talk. And I set appointments and I talk to student athletes. It's a great way to end my week. It's also a great way to go into the weekend because it reminds me of the work that I do and the impact that I'm making. So I think on those hard days, I could always reflect back and say, I'm still here for a purpose, and that's to help our student athletes be leaders in life. And it also, the fact that I'm a former student athlete myself. So it's like I'm giving back. I've been in their shoes. I understand their journey somewhat. I know it's changed a lot since my day, but I'm also about meeting them where they are, right? And helping them to navigate some of the spaces they're in, but not being judgmental and just being a listening ear for them and being able to help them be great in life.
So helping student athlete to navigate the waters that we call life, that sounds very professional life specific, right? I wonder if that is a part of your personal life too, right? Our purpose. And let me tell you why I ask. So what I do is a podcast, I do videos, I do some leadership communications coaching, and my purpose being to be a resource for my family, close friends, and community. And I feel like it all fits in that purpose, right? When you do a podcast and people listen to it, young person, or even people who are already in the chair or whatever, listening to what other people do and feel like they've been educated. So sometimes I'm like, man, do I need to do some type of extra like nonprofit work to fulfill my purpose? Or is it okay if your work is fulfilling your purpose and you're actually doing those things? Tell me about some thoughts on that in terms of you and helping young people to exist in the world as leaders.
Well, I have two young people in my life that I call my kids.
Right.
So I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And I'll tell you, I think it's helpful too, being a woman in the sports business at the level that I'm working. This job requires a lot of our time, right? And so as a working mom and wife, there are some challenges that come with, am I doing enough at home?
Right.
The good thing about it is, I think through the work that I'm doing with the young people, and I'm fortunate to be have an employer who believes in family integration and what we're doing. So my kids get to come with me to various events and be around these young people that I get to impact. I also see it as a way that, from a purpose standpoint, is these are the young people who are going to be leaders to my children one day, right? And so that's really important that they're able to see this and be around it. And so even on those tough days, I look at it like my daughter's watching me And my daughter gets to see the student athletes that I get to impact. And so that's huge in our house and for my family and for my son as well, to have them around the environment. I grew up, my mom worked at Savannah State University for many years. So I grew up on an HBCU campus. Who impacted me when I was little? Those students I would see on Savannah State's campus, because I was at every event, every football game, every basketball game, every, hanging out on the yard or homecoming. So I was a part of that. And that was a big influence for me. And so I see that I get that opportunity now with my own children to be able to see that in the young people whose lives I get to impact. And I only hope that, I said this the other night when I was up at 11 o'clock trying to help one of our student athletes get back home from a conference meeting. I told the travel agent, I just hope that one day someone is here for my children the way that I'm here for these young people that I get to impact.
Which is excellent. I had a thought as you were talking about perspective on that purpose. The perspective we've talked about so far is developing student athletes or developing young people to go out in the world and become leaders, right?
Yep.
But what if the perspective changed? What if we inverted and say, our purpose is to make the world better by developing young people to improve the world or something like that, right? So now the purpose is to make the world better. And so no matter if you decide to go be a technician at some software company, you're still developing young people to make the world better, right?
Correct.
But the purpose is to make the world better, and the way you execute that purpose is by developing young leaders to go out into the world and make it better. I think that's excellent in terms of however you look at that.
Yeah,
in terms of
and just how they look at themselves and how they view themselves. You look at them on, especially in our league, you see them on television and you see them, on competing in their sports, and you think that they're the most confident people that exist because they're able to kill it in their game and in their sport. But at the end of the day, when you put them out there in this world to navigate professionally, sometimes it can be a challenge. And so my thing is to remind them that you have all that you have right now on this court floor, wherever you compete, but you also have that in you as a person. And so, I truly believe in it. And that's why even in the work that we do in career development in the conference office, we've been able to be very successful by just trying to pull that out of them and letting them know that, for one, they're more than the sport they play. They're more than the athlete that people have labeled them to be. And they have so much more to offer the world.
Yeah, which is excellent. So I got a couple of questions here. First is, tell me about the Fridays that you set aside to talk to student athletes. How does that work? You planned a bunch of meetings, and Friday you just execute the meeting?
So believe it or not, Tai, I've been able to build relationships in our league to where students will reach out just to talk. I open the door. I work specifically with leadership councils on our campuses, in the conference office. So those are football, men's, women's basketball, and then we have our SAT group, our SEC SAT group. So those are the groups I'm probably a little closer with because I get to meet with them multiple times throughout the year. But there's some other students that, even former student athletes who they would call me and say, hey, I need some career advice, or I'm not feeling as, confident about entering the career space, or I just want to talk about something that's bothering me. And so, a lot of times, if it's not something that's immediate, I always say, Fridays are my days. I just want to set aside time for that, because during the week, it does get somewhat busy, especially during the sports that I work with, volleyball, gymnastics. Sometimes those weeks can get a little busy. So I've allowed myself to put time aside on Friday for any student athletes. And it's not every Friday, but that is my time. And I let them know, hey, just give me a call. We could set up a Zoom. I could FaceTime, whatever it is. And we can just talk about whatever you want to talk about. And I'll tell you, it's probably more for me than it is for them half the time, right? And so it sends me into the weekend full, my cup's full, and gets me going back on a Monday. And reminds me again, when I have a tough call with a coach and we're off the phone and I'm like, but I remember why I'm doing what I'm doing and who I'm serving professionally, and what I'm trying to do. So it's always helpful with that.
Which is excellent. This wouldn't be the One Question Leadership podcast if I don't talk about leadership, right? Fundraising, event planning, making decisions, thinking about things at the 50,000 foot level. When you look at leadership, you introduced me to someone who I guess is an intern with you. I don't know what hand you had in creating that internship, but I know when I was at the Football Coaches Association, I had to create graduate assistantships so I could get the leadership and management experience, right? Leading people.
Yep.
So talk to me about that experience throughout your career. You've probably had interns and other people that work for you. I believe you have somebody who reports to you now full time.
Yes.
Tell me about kind of a leadership philosophy, but then also why it's important for you in executing that purpose, right?
Yep.
That you are leading people and helping them to become better people to service the world.
Yeah. So, my leadership philosophy is about empowering others, right? Okay. And one of those things, I guess one of the things that I've been able to do in the role at the SCC office is be able to create a lot of programs and opportunities for student athletes, since my position was a new position when I was hired. And it's still the only position like what I do now that exists in college athletics, right? So a part of that program is part of my position, I've been able to start some unique programs to provide opportunities for our student athletes. One of them is our student athlete internship program. We started that about 4 years ago. We have 2 positions in the conference office, and pretty much that was started because, again, our student athletes don't have the opportunity to go out and get internships, right? They're so busy with their sport and their classes that they don't get that opportunity that other students get a chance to have. And so we started small. Our office isn't very big, so we didn't even have a lot of space. But, we went to I went to our commissioner and we talked about how can we start a program to be able to provide opportunities for our own student athletes who are interested in careers in sports. And so Alexandra Woodbury, who you met downstairs, she former track and field student athlete, a heptathlete from Mississippi State. She is the 4th student athlete intern in that position. We also have another position down in the communications department, and that's our digital communications intern. And so we've been able to do really well with that. And we've been able to launch several of our interns into, the professional environment in sports. One of them was hired in our office, John Sellin, a former football student athlete from Auburn. Akaya Times is now director of women's basketball operations at Georgia State. So we've been able to do some really good things and really being able to give them some experience in the conference office that gives them that confidence to go out into the world and figure things out for themselves.
And these are people who have finished playing or participating in their sport.
That's correct. Yep.
And I wish I would have had something like that.
And here's the other thing. Another program we started, we would go to our championships. We would have all these volunteers there. And I'm like, we need to have our student athletes volunteering for these. So we started a volunteer program at all of our major championships. So that's football, men's and women's basketball, gymnastics, baseball. So we have student athletes come to volunteer for that. We've done that. I still do our career tour, which we're in year 8 of in Atlanta, Georgia. So we've been able to do and I guess implement some programs within the SCC to really help in the career development piece.
Yeah, it's excellent because, we've always said to young people, it's about who knows you, right? Or who you know, right?
Correct.
Who you know, who knows you and who knows what you can do, right?
Correct.
Who's willing to vouch for you.
Yep.
And what you're doing is giving people the opportunity to be vouched for, basically, right? Let's get you some experience. And now you have people who have seen you work that will speak your name.
That's correct.
When it comes up. I think that's an excellent thing, which ties into that purpose.
Yep,
that you said
it does. Which is why I love what I do.
Right, what I'm saying. Right, you know what you do, right? When that purpose and work cross, you don't feel like you're working anymore.
No.
It's like I'm just doing this every day. Don't let the boss know that.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll ask a couple questions here and then we'll wrap. Tell me about the other part of your job, right? The one that Monday through Friday is full of bullet points so that Monday through Thursday, actually, it's full of bullet points so that you can't wait to get to Friday and talk to the student athletes.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about that. Tell me about some of the challenges that you've had to overcome, decisions you've had to make that influence the conference in a way that us on the outside looking in may not know happened.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I don't have to make a lot of decisions on my own, right? We have a great team in our office that we work with. My coworkers are amazing. I think, I guess some of the bigger challenges, and here's the thing, this is a Monday through Friday deal. Yeah. I just try to set aside some
that time, right? Prioritize.
But I think this is something we're all dealing with in college athletics is expansion and change. And things changing rapidly and adjusting, right? And, I told my daughter the other day as she dealt with some changes at school, I said, one thing in life, you got to learn how to change, adapt, pivot, and just move on, right? And so I'd say probably the biggest challenges right now is just trying to continue to learn what's going on in the collegiate environment, right? And try to stay above water right now. Like I said, I have a team and I don't have to make a lot of decisions alone. But I work with the sports of gymnastics. And so that's working with our gymnastics coaches. We have amazing programs in gymnastics. And also the sport of volleyball, which one thing to note is we're starting back a volleyball tournament in 2025 after 20 years in the SEC. So as of right now, we're the only Power 4 or 5, I don't know what you call it now, but league that will have an SEC volleyball tournament. So we'll start that in 25 with 16 teams.
So how did it work without a tournament?
We just had our regular season champion as the automatic qualifier for the NCAAs.
Oh, really? Oh, so the coaches are happy now. Like,
no,
they don't like the tournament?
Our student athletes are happy. They want us to, I guess happy. Everyone's happy now.
Yeah.
It's happening, Ty. So
I'm like, look, bro, I know y'all beat me during the season a couple times, but let's go. One more time, baby. One more time.
It's happening. And you know what? I'm excited about it because the work that I do with our students, like our volleyball student athletes have said forever. They were like, why don't we have a tournament? Why don't we have it? And so we're bringing it back in 2025. So kind of knee deep with that. In addition to, welcoming in 2 additional teams next year.
Yeah. I think that's excellent. This has been a great conversation. I'm trying to sum up this purpose and trying not to put too much of my own Tai Brown isms on it and making it introverted. I mean, turning it inside out by saying developing the world by providing young people with leadership. Tell me again, if we could couch for the audience your purpose in doing what it is that you do at work, at home, and in life.
Yeah. Tai, I feel like my purpose is to be here, to serve young people, to help them to realize their significance in life and in this world. And specifically with these student athletes that I get to work with, just helping them to understand their value to society and helping to bring that out for them. So, and I think that's my purpose. Professionally. And, I'll say I spend most of my time at work. So I spend most of my time around student athletes, or not around them, but working on behalf of student athletes. But even, personally in my personal life with the young people that I'm around, my own children, their friends, just want to help these young people to realize that they're so much greater than they probably even know. And it's so much more in them than they could probably even think of. So, yeah.
You pouring into them, right? Like your mother poured into the people around you. You
That's
saw
correct.
that? Yeah. I'm similar, right?
I got a chance to see her do that for 30 years at Savannah State. And you know what? Heard it for many of years. Heard it for years, even when she was still living. Heard it for years. And so, I feel like when her life came to an end, I feel like she had fulfilled her purpose 100%. As well.
Yeah, one of my mother, before she passed away, she was talking to us and she was like, look, you, all 3 of you are great citizens on the earth and contributing to society. So she felt like, I did what I'm supposed to, right? I got kids that are productive citizens. So, Misty, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Thanks, Tai.
Yes, ma'am. That was Misty Brown. She's the Assistant Commissioner for Student Athlete Engagement and Championships at the Southeastern Conference. And of course, I am Tai Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.